half square triangles using the 4 at a time method, it's actually really simple, and you only need 2 squares of the same size to start. Now the math to figure out the starting square size is a little bit trickier than the other magical half square triangle methods. So I've actually included a cheat sheet for you up on the blog so that you can see how the math works, how I round up a little bit just to make it easier from a cutting standpoint. So I'm working with whole numbers rather than a whole bunch of weird fractions. You can go to the blog and see all of the different sizes from, I believe, 1 inch finished size all the way up to a 10-inch half square triangle finished size. So for today's tutorial, I'm going to be starting with 2 4-inch squares, and this will give me 4 2.5-inch unfinished half square triangles or 4 2-inch half square triangles that are finished, 2-inch finished, which gets a little bit confusing, I know. In this section though, I wanted to walk you through the notions and tools that you'll need to make 4 half square triangles at a time. So the first thing you're going to need is your 2 starting squares. Here, as I said, I have 2 4-inch squares. You're going to need some pins. This is optional, but I'll show you when and why I use them. You're going to need a rotary cutter. I'm using 50 weight Aurifil thread in the color 2000 to do all of my piecing. You're going to need a ruler, either just a regular 6 by 12-inch ruler or a specialty ruler. Here I've got the Creative Grids 4-in-1 triangle ruler, and I'll show you how both of those come into play. You're also going to need a sewing machine and a pressing board and an iron so that we can press these all nice and flat. Let's dive in. To make your half square triangles using the 4 at a time method, what you're going to do is just place your 2 squares right sides together. And this is where the pins come in. You can pop a pin in it in the center just to keep things from shifting around on you. What we're going to do is stitch around the entire perimeter using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Let's go do that. Okay, so we're at the sewing machine. What we're going to do is we're going to start by lowering our needle, and then I like to bring my patchwork up to my needle and then lower my presser foot. And here I tend to stitch with a scant 1/4 inch seam allowance, and I'll link to a video and blog post on how you can figure out how to find your scant 1/4 inch seam allowance. And basically what we're going to do is just stitch around the entire perimeter. As you come up to a corner, you have the option of either stitching up to the 1/4 inch mark, pivoting, or stitch right off and then flip your piece and continue stitching. I'm going to stitch right off just so you can see how that looks. So I don't cut my threads here. I just lift, pull my threads a little bit, reposition, and go again. And I'm going to repeat that 2 more times. And 1 more. Okay, we're going to cut our threads, and so we can remove our pin, and there we've stitched around the entire perimeter. Now for the fun of cutting these apart. To cut your square to create the 4 at a time half square triangles, what we're going to do is cut directly from corner to corner on the diagonal. So without moving anything, what you want to do is place your ruler from tip to tip and make sure that what I like to do is try and target to get my my cuts to go straight through where my my stitches intersect. So where I've got those stitches connecting, I'm trying to get my cut to go directly through that intersection there. You do have wiggle room though to trim them down, so don't stress too much about this part if you're a little bit off. So first cut and then second cut. And there you've got 4 half square triangles. Let's go press them. When it comes to pressing your half square triangles, it's important that you don't pull or tug on any of your pieces. We're dealing with a lot of bias edges at this point, so being delicate with your fabric is very important. Before I even press my half square triangles to the side, or if you prefer open, I like to start by setting my seams. And all that entails is placing a hot steamy iron on top of your stitches, leaving it there for a second. What that does is allow your stitches to kind of sink into the fabric and become one, and it removes a little bit of a ridge that's created by your seams, by your stitches. Here, I like to first finger press before bringing my hot steamy iron on top. Now you do have the option of placing a tailor's clapper on top and allowing your seam to cool. This will result in very flat seams, which can create a much more enjoyable quilting session later on down the road. Otherwise, I tend to like using a really hot steamy iron, and I find that my iron on its own does a pretty good job of getting it nice and flat. So once you have your half square triangles nicely pressed, we can move on to trimming them. To trim your half square triangle with a regular ruler, what we're going to do is find the 45-degree line. So that center line on your half square triangle is a 45-degree line. And what we're going to do is find the 45-degree line on our ruler and line that directly along that center seam. Once you have that, what I'm looking to do is we're going to be trimming these to 2.5 inches wide. So here's my 2, and here's my 2.5. And so I'm right on the 2.5 here. I've got a little bit of excess on the top. I've got a little bit of excess here, and I'm pretty much kif. So I don't have a huge amount of trimming room on this one, which is good. It makes really great, it makes efficient use of your fabric. Once you've done one cut, I'm going to flip it and do that same thing. So now I'm going to bring it flush along the top, still always starting with the 45-degree line, and then I'm flush here along the 2.5. I've got a little bit of excess here, and I'm pretty kif on the bottom. So I'm just going to take that next cut and trim. I'm going to repeat that again, finding that 45-degree line, making sure I'm aligned here, making sure I'm aligned on this line. This line is actually very good. I just can see that I have a little bit to trim down here, so I'm going to turn it again and then bring it back on along that 45-degree angle. Here I'm flush along the top, I'm flush along the 2.5, I'm flush along the bottom here. I just have a little bit of excess poking out beyond here. And there you have a nicely trimmed half square triangle using the 4 at a time method and using a regular ruler. I'll show you the next one using a specialty ruler. The next method for trimming that I wanted to show you is using a specialty triangle ruler. So this is the Creative Grids 4-in-1 half square triangle ruler, and I'll show you, it's very different from how we were cutting before, so I wanted to show you how this looks in action. So there's multiple ways that you can trim these using this ruler. I'm showing you the version where you've already pressed them, and so that's going to follow on this segment of the ruler. And so what you're looking to do is similar to the regular trimming method. We're still always going to start on the 45-degree line. Now, what you want to do is, the way this works is the 2-inch, so we're going for a 2-inch finished half square triangle unit, 2.5 inches unfinished, which I know gets confusing. But basically, I'm looking for the 2-inch mark on my ruler, which is right here. So this is the 2-inch. And so basically, you're following it based off of the finished size, not the unfinished size. And then all you do is line up that center line on the ruler along the 45-degree line. And then what you want to do is make sure that you've got either a flush alignment here or you've got material that exceeds. Otherwise, you've cut your unit too small. So you can see that it's peeking out just a little bit here. I've got a little bit exceeding on the top over here as well, which is all good. So these ones don't have a huge amount of trimming room, which is great because it makes great use of your fabric. You're not wasting a lot to trimming. But if things are shifting on you a lot, then you may want to start with a larger starting square to give you more trimming room. So I just missed a piece there with it didn't completely come off, so there we go. So I've got two lines cut. Now I just flipped the unit again so that I'm coming back to line up on that center 45-degree seam. I've got a nice alignment here. I got a flush alignment here. I've got a little bit of fabric that sticks out there and some that sticks out here as well. So I'm just going to come in and take those cuts to get them nicely squared up. And there you have 2 squared up half square triangles using the 4 at a time HST method, and 2 different ways of trimming them up with either a regular ruler or a specialty ruler. Have fun with these!